My millionaire CEO ex was dying after surgery, and the only blood match was the daughter I hid from him for 8 years. Our daughter. The words hung in the air between them, irrevocable. David stared at her, shock replacing the fatigue on his face. Our daughter? He whispered, as if saying it louder might make it disappear. Her name is Chloe. She's 8 years old. David's hand trembled as he raised it to his face. 8 years. You were pregnant when you left. Tasha nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Why? The single word contained a universe of pain. Why didn't you tell me? Your father, Tasha said, the old anger rising in her chest. He threatened my family, David. He said he would destroy my parents' business, make sure my brother lost his scholarship. He showed me proof that he could do it all with a single phone call. David's face drained of what little color it had. My father did this? He's the reason you left. Have you ever wondered what it would take to keep a life-changing secret for 8 years? And what would happen when that secret was finally revealed in the most desperate circumstances? Hi, my beautiful sisters. I just want to remind you of something important. You are stronger than you know. You carry more than most people will ever understand, and you still rise every day. But never forget, you deserve love that shows up, a love that respects you, your time, and your heart. If you walked away from something or someone, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you chose yourself. And that's the most powerful thing you can ever do. You are worth the effort, the loyalty, and the love that truly honors you. Don't settle for anything less. I'm Mr. Harrison, and today I'm sharing the extraordinary story of a mother forced to make an impossible choice between protecting her family and denying a father the knowledge of his child. If you've ever had to choose between two impossible options, hit that like button right now. And if you believe that sometimes the most painful decisions come from a place of love, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales for more stories that will touch your heart and remind you of the power of forgiveness. Tasha Simmons stared at the hospital entrance, her heart hammering against her ribs. 8 years. 8 years since she'd walked away from David Carter, the man who had once been her everything. Now she stood at the threshold of his world again, holding the small hand of the daughter he never knew existed. Mom, why are we at the hospital? Are you sick? Chloe looked up, her curious blue eyes, David's eyes, searching Tasha's face with concern. No, sweetheart. Tasha knelt down, smoothing Chloe's dark curls. Remember I told you we're here to help someone who's very sick? Someone who needs special blood? Like yours. Chloe nodded solemnly. At 8 years old, she possessed a compassion that sometimes took Tasha's breath away. Because I have the special blood type that can help them? That's right. Tasha swallowed the lump in her throat. How could she explain that the man lying inside, fighting for his life, was Chloe's father? A father who had no idea she existed. The automatic doors slid open, releasing a gust of antiseptic-scented air. Tasha took a deep breath and led Chloe inside, each step feeling heavier than the last. But to understand how Tasha and Chloe ended up at this hospital on this fateful day, we need to go back to the beginning. 9 years earlier, when a brilliant young marketing graduate named Tasha Simmons walked into the headquarters of Carter Enterprises for her first day as a junior marketing associate. The Carter building dominated the downtown skyline, all gleaming glass and steel, a testament to the empire Richard Carter had built from nothing. Tasha remembered feeling small as she passed through the revolving doors, clutching her portfolio like a shield. She had beaten out hundreds of applicants for this position, and she was determined to prove herself worthy. You must be Tasha. A deep voice interrupted her thoughts as she waited for the elevator. She turned to find herself face to face with the most striking man she'd ever seen. Tall, with piercing blue eyes and an easy confidence that spoke of privilege and power. Yes, I'm Tasha Simmons. It's my first day in marketing. She extended her hand, hoping he couldn't see how nervous she was. David Carter. He smiled, taking her hand. Welcome to Carter Enterprises. Tasha felt her heart skip. David Carter, the heir apparent, the CEO's son who was being groomed to take over the company. She'd seen his picture in business magazines, but hadn't expected to meet him on her first day. Thank you, Mr. Carter. I'm looking forward to the opportunity. Please call me David. His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners in a way that transformed his handsome face into something more approachable. I have a feeling you're going to do great things here, Tasha Simmons. That chance meeting in the elevator lobby was the beginning of everything. Within weeks, David was finding reasons to visit the marketing department. Coffee breaks turned into lunch meetings, which evolved into dinner discussions about campaign strategies and market expansions. Tasha told herself it was professional mentorship, nothing more. But the way her pulse quickened whenever he entered a room told a different story. You see things differently, David told her one evening as they worked late. Takeout containers scattered across the conference room table. Everyone else just tells me what they think I want to hear. You tell me the truth. Isn't that what you pay me for? Tasha asked, trying to keep her tone light despite the intensity of his gaze. I pay you to create brilliant marketing campaigns, David replied. The honesty is a bonus I never expected. 3 months after her first day, David asked her to dinner, not at a restaurant where they could discuss work, but at his penthouse apartment. Just us, he said. No talk of market shares or campaign metrics. I want to know about Tasha Simmons, the person. That night changed everything. Away from the office, David was different. More relaxed, funnier, with a vulnerability that his corporate persona never revealed. He told her about growing up under Richard Carter's exacting standards, about the pressure of being the heir to a business empire, about his dreams of steering the company in new directions once he took the helm. My father built this company with ruthless determination, David explained as they stood on his balcony. The city lights spread before them like stars. He sees any emotion as weakness. But I think there's strength in compassion, in creating a company that values its people as much as its profits. That's why you'll be a better CEO than he ever was, Tasha said softly. David turned to her then, his expression serious. You make me believe I can be. Their first kiss tasted like possibility, like a future neither had dared to imagine before that moment. Their relationship blossomed in secret at first. Office romances were frowned upon at Carter Enterprises, especially for someone in Tasha's position. But love has a way of refusing to remain hidden. Within months, they were inseparable, their connection deepening with each passing day. I've never felt this way about anyone, David confessed one night as they lay tangled in his sheets, the city glittering beyond the windows. You make me want to be better, Tasha. To be worthy of you. You already are, she whispered against his skin. But paradise is rarely without its serpent. In their case, it came in the form of Richard Carter, whose cold disapproval was evident from the moment David finally introduced Tasha as his girlfriend at a company gala. So you're the distraction that's been keeping my son from his responsibilities, Richard said, his smile not reaching his eyes as he shook Tasha's hand. I've been wondering why David's been missing so many early meetings lately. Dad, David warned, his arm tightening around Tasha's waist. Just making conversation, son. Richard's gaze was calculating as it swept over Tasha. Ms. Simmons certainly is different from your usual type. The implication was clear. Tasha, with her scholarship education and middle-class background, was not what Richard had envisioned for his son. She wasn't from their world of old money and corporate dynasties. She was an outsider, a threat to the carefully constructed future Richard had planned. Despite Richard's disapproval, David and Tasha's relationship flourished. After a year together, they moved into a downtown apartment, creating a space that was truly theirs. David proposed 6 months later, on the anniversary of their first meeting, presenting Tasha with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. She was the only person who ever stood up to my father, David explained as he slipped the ring onto Tasha's finger. She would have loved you. The engagement announcement made the business pages, much to Richard's chagrin. The heir to Carter Enterprises marrying a marketing associate from a modest background was exactly the kind of story the press loved. Richard's congratulations were stiff, his smile forced as cameras flashed at the official engagement party. You've made your point, David? Richard said later that evening, cornering his son when Tasha was speaking with guests. You've rebelled. Now it's time to think about your future, about the company's future. Tasha is my future, David replied firmly. And she'll be an asset to the company, not a liability. We'll see, Richard said, his tone making it clear he thought otherwise. As their wedding date approached, the cracks began to show. David was working longer hours, pulled into meetings that always seemed to run late, sent on business trips that couldn't be rescheduled. Richard was tightening his grip, reminding David of his responsibilities, of the legacy he was meant to uphold. He's testing me, David explained after missing yet another dinner date, trying to see if I'm committed enough to the company. And are you? Tasha asked, unable to keep the hurt from her voice. Of course I am. But I'm committed to us too. David pulled her close. Once we're married, once I've proven myself to him, things will be different. You'll see. But Tasha was beginning to wonder if things would ever truly change. If David would ever be able to step out from under his father's shadow. If there would ever be room in his life for both Carter Enterprises and a family of their own. What she didn't know then was that Richard Carter had no intention of letting his son's marriage proceed without intervention. That he was already setting in motion a plan that would tear them apart. That soon, Tasha would be forced to make a choice that would alter the course of not just her life, but the lives of those she loved most. And as she now stood in the hospital corridor, Chloe's small hand in hers, Tasha wondered if she had made the right choice all those years ago. If the price of protection had been too high. If the secret she had kept for 8 long years was about to destroy what little piece she had managed to build. 3 days earlier, Tasha had been grading papers in her modest apartment when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something, intuition perhaps, made her answer. Is this Tasha Simmons? The woman's voice was professional, clipped. Yes, this is she. My name is Dr. Eleanor Winters from Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about David Carter. The name alone was enough to make Tasha's hand tremble. David? What about him? Mr. Carter underwent emergency surgery yesterday, following complications from a previous procedure. He's in critical condition and requires a blood transfusion. However, he has a rare blood type, and we're struggling to find a match. Tasha closed her eyes, memories flooding back. David mentioning his rare blood type years ago, the same type that had shown up in Chloe's first pediatric tests. Ms. Simmons? Are you still there? Yes, I'm here. Tasha's voice sounded distant to her own ears. How did you find me? Mr. Carter had you listed as his emergency contact. It appears he never removed you. 8 years, and he'd never taken her off his emergency contacts. The thought sent a pang through her chest. I understand this is unexpected, Dr. Winters continued, but we're reaching out to anyone who might be able to help or might know someone with compatible blood. Tasha's gaze drifted to the framed photo on her desk. Chloe on her 7th birthday, grinning with chocolate cake smeared across her cheek. David's daughter. The daughter with his rare blood type. I might be able to help, Tasha said quietly, but it's complicated. The words felt inadequate for the magnitude of what she was considering. How could she explain that the solution to David's medical crisis was the very secret she had protected for 8 years? That saving his life meant revealing a truth that might destroy the careful boundaries she had built? After hanging up with Dr. Winters, Tasha sat motionless, staring at Chloe's photo. Her mind raced back to the day everything had changed. The day Richard Carter had summoned her to his office, just 3 weeks before her wedding to David. Ms. Simmons, thank you for coming. Richard had gestured to the chair across from his imposing desk. His office occupied the entire top floor of Carter Tower, with views that emphasized his position at the pinnacle of the business world. You said it was urgent, Mr. Carter. Tasha had taken the seat, trying to project confidence despite the knot of anxiety in her stomach. It is. Richard had leaned forward, steepling his fingers. I'll be direct. This marriage cannot happen. The bluntness of his statement had left her momentarily speechless. I'm sorry. David is destined for greatness. He has responsibilities to this company, to our legacy. A marriage to someone like you would only hold him back. Someone like me? Tasha had repeated, heat rising to her cheeks. Don't misunderstand. You're clearly intelligent, ambitious even. But you're not from our world. You don't understand what it takes to maintain what we've built." Richard's smile had been cold. "David is going through a phase of rebellion. It will pass. Our relationship is not a phase, Mr. Carter. David and I love each other." Love. Richard had practically spat the word. "Love doesn't build empires, Miss Simmons. Sacrifice does. Discipline does." He had opened a drawer, removing a folder. "Now I'm prepared to be generous. $2 million. Clean break. You leave the company, leave the city, leave my son to fulfill his destiny." Tasha had stood, trembling with anger. "I'm not for sale, Mr. Carter, and neither is David's happiness." "I thought you might say that." Richard's expression had hardened. "Which is why I've taken the liberty of investigating alternatives." He had slid the folder across the desk. Inside were documents detailing her parents' struggling small business, her brother's prestigious scholarship, and evidence of how quickly both could be destroyed. "Your father's business operates on loans that could be called in tomorrow. Your brother's scholarship comes from a foundation where I sit on the board." Richard's voice had been matter-of-fact. "I can ruin your family with a single phone call." "You wouldn't." But even as she'd said it, Tasha had known he would. The cold determination in his eyes told her everything. "I built this company from nothing, Miss Simmons. I've crushed competitors far more formidable than you. The question is not what I would do, but what you will do to protect your family." Tasha had left that meeting with the weight of an impossible choice on her shoulders. For days, she had searched for a solution, some way to defy Richard without destroying her family. But every path led to the same conclusion. Richard Carter would stop at nothing to separate her from David. The final blow had come when she discovered she was pregnant. What should have been joyous news became another complication in an already impossible situation. Richard's threats now extended not just to her parents and brother, but to her unborn child. Would he try to take the baby? Use his wealth and influence to declare her an unfit mother? In the end, Tasha had made the hardest decision of her life. She'd left a letter for David, unable to face him directly, knowing her resolve would crumble if she saw the pain in his eyes. The letter contained half-truths, that she wasn't ready for marriage, that she felt overwhelmed by the Carter world, that she needed space to find herself. Nothing about Richard's threats. Nothing about the baby growing inside her. She'd moved across the country, changed her phone number, cut all ties to her former life. Her parents had been confused but supportive, believing she needed a fresh start after a broken engagement. Only her brother knew the partial truth, that Richard had threatened them, though even he didn't know about Chloe until after she was born. Now, as Tasha led Chloe through the hospital corridors, those memories weighed on her like stones. She'd spent 8 years building a life for them, becoming a high school English teacher, creating a home in a small community where Chloe could thrive, far from the Carter influence. And in one phone call, that carefully constructed life was on the verge of collapse. "Miss Simmons? I'm Dr. Winters." A tall woman with silver-streaked hair approached them. "Thank you for coming. Let's talk in my office." As they followed the doctor, Tasha felt as though she were walking toward an inevitable collision, past and present merging in ways she'd never prepared for. Dr. Winters' office was small but warm, with plants on the windowsill and children's drawings pinned to a corkboard. She gestured for them to sit. "This must be very difficult for you," she said, her tone gentler than it had been on the phone. "How is he?" Tasha asked, unable to stop herself. "Stable for now, but his condition could deteriorate without the transfusion." Dr. Winters looked at Chloe, who was examining a colorful anatomy chart on the wall. "Does she know?" Tasha shook her head slightly. "Not yet. I needed to be sure first." Dr. Winters nodded. "We'll need to run tests to confirm compatibility, but if she is a match, it could save his life." She paused. "Does Mr. Carter know about her?" "No." The word felt heavy on Tasha's tongue. "He doesn't know." The doctor's expression remained neutral, professional. "I see. Well, that's not my concern right now. My priority is my patient's health." She turned to Chloe with a warm smile. Would you like to help us today, young lady? Chloe nodded, her expression serious. Mom says my blood might help someone who's sick. That's right. We'll just need to take a small sample to check if it's the right kind. It will feel like a little pinch, but it's very quick. As Dr. Winters explained the procedure to Chloe, Tasha's mind raced. If Chloe was a match, and Tasha knew in her heart she would be, there would be no more hiding. David would know about his daughter. And with that knowledge would come questions, recriminations, perhaps even legal battles. But could she really let him die? Despite everything. Despite the pain of their separation, despite the years of raising Chloe alone. Tasha knew the answer was no. If you're wondering how someone could keep such a monumental secret for 8 years, hit that like button. And if you believe that sometimes the hardest choices come from a place of love, not malice, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales for more stories that will challenge your understanding of right and wrong. The test results came back quickly, confirming what Tasha already knew. Chloe was a perfect match. We'd like to proceed as soon as possible, Dr. Winters said. The procedure is safe and relatively simple for Chloe. We'll only take what's appropriate for her age and size. Tasha nodded, her throat tight. Before we do this, I need to see him. Alone. Dr. Winters seemed to understand. Of course. The child life specialist can stay with Chloe while you visit Mr. Carter. 20 minutes later, after settling Chloe with a kind-faced specialist and a collection of books, Tasha stood outside David's hospital room. Through the small window in the door, she could see him, thinner than she remembered. His once vibrant face now pale against the white sheets. Monitors beeped steadily beside him, tracking the fragile rhythm of his life. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of medical equipment. David's eyes were closed, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Tasha approached the bed slowly, her heart aching at the sight of him so vulnerable. David, she whispered, not expecting a response. But his eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then widening as they settled on her face. Tasha. His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. Am I dreaming? She moved closer, fighting the urge to take his hand. No, it's really me. You came. The wonder in his voice made her chest tighten. After all this time, the hospital called me. They said you needed a blood transfusion. David's gaze sharpened, confusion evident. They called you? Why? Apparently, I'm still your emergency contact. Tasha attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You never changed it. A shadow of something, regret, perhaps, crossed his face. I never thought you'd come. I almost didn't. The honesty slipped out before she could stop it. David studied her face, drinking in the changes 8 years had wrought. But you're here now. Why? This was the moment, the precipice she'd been approaching since receiving that phone call. Tasha took a steadying breath. Because I found a blood donor for you. Someone with your rare blood type. Hope flickered in his eyes. That's incredible. Who? Our daughter. The words hung in the air between them, irrevocable. David stared at her, shock replacing the fatigue on his face. Our daughter? He whispered, as if saying it louder might make it disappear. Her name is Chloe. She's 8 years old. David's hand trembled as he raised it to his face. 8 years. You were pregnant when you left. Tasha nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Why? The single word contained a universe of pain. Why didn't you tell me? Your father, Tasha said, the old anger rising in her chest. He threatened my family, David. He said he would destroy my parents' business, make sure my brother lost his scholarship. He showed me proof that he could do it all with a single phone call. David's face drained of what little color it had. My father did this? He's the reason you left. He said you were destined for greatness, that I was holding you back, that a child would ruin everything he'd built for you. Tasha's voice broke. I was 22 and terrified. I believed him when he said you'd choose your future over us. I would have chosen you, David said, his voice raw with emotion. I would have chosen our child. Every time. Would you have? Tasha challenged gently. You were already working 80-hour weeks, missing dates, canceling plans. Your father had groomed you to take over the company since you were a child. Could you really have walked away from that? David closed his eyes, pain etched into every line of his face. I deserved the chance to try. We deserved that chance. The truth of his words hit Tasha like a physical blow. In protecting Chloe from the Carter influence, had she also robbed her of a father? Had she robbed David of the chance to be more than what his father had planned? She's here now, Tasha said softly. She doesn't know who you are yet. I told her she's helping someone who needs special blood. David's eyes opened, a desperate hope shining through his exhaustion. Can I see her? The question was so simple yet so monumental. Tasha hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but David, she's innocent in all this. Whatever happens between us, whatever anger you feel toward me, please remember that. I would never hurt her, he whispered. She's my daughter. The words seemed to transform him, breathing new life into his weakened body. My daughter. After 8 years of absence, the title still belonged to him. I'll bring her in, Tasha said, moving toward the door. But first you should know. She's exactly like you. Stubborn, brilliant, with a heart bigger than she knows what to do with. A tear slipped down David's cheek. Thank you for that, at least. Tasha paused at the door, looking back at the man she'd once loved with her whole heart. The man who, despite everything, still had the power to make her pulse quicken. I never stopped loving you, David said suddenly, his voice stronger than before. Even when I thought you'd abandoned me. Even when I was angry enough to hate you. I never could. Tasha felt her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. I need to get Chloe, she said, and slipped out of the room before he could see her own tears fall. Explaining to Chloe that the sick man was her father was the hardest conversation Tasha had ever had. They sat in a quiet corner of the hospital cafeteria, Chloe's untouched chocolate milk between them. Remember how I told you that your daddy lived far away? Tasha began. Chloe nodded. You said he didn't know about me because you lost touch with him before I was born. That's right. Well, it turns out he's been living in this city all along. And he's the person who needs your special blood. Chloe's eyes widened. The sick man is my dad? Yes, sweetheart. His name is David. And he just found out about you today. Is he mad? Chloe asked, her voice small. No, honey. Tasha squeezed her hand. He's sad that he missed so much time with you, but he's not mad. He wants to meet you very much. Will I still help him with my blood? Only if you want to. It's completely your choice. Chloe considered this, her young face serious. If I help him, will he get better? The doctors think so, yes. Then I want to help. Chloe's decision was immediate, unhesitating. He's my dad, even if I just found out. Tasha felt a surge of pride mixed with heartache. Her daughter's capacity for compassion never ceased to amaze her. There's something else you should know, Tasha said carefully. Your dad comes from a wealthy family. They own a big company. Like a millionaire? Chloe asked, her concept of wealth clearly influenced by storybooks. Yes, like that. But money doesn't make someone good or bad. It's what they do with it, and how they treat others that matters. Chloe nodded solemnly. Is he nice? The question was so simple, yet so profound. Tasha thought of the David she had known, passionate, driven, but fundamentally kind-hearted despite his father's influence. Yes, she said finally. He's nice. He made mistakes, and so did I, but at his heart, he's a good person. Okay. Chloe picked up her chocolate milk, apparently satisfied. I'm ready to meet him now. David's face when Chloe walked into his hospital room was something Tasha knew she would remember for the rest of her life. It was as if he were seeing the sun for the first time after years of darkness. Awe, disbelief, and pure love transforming his features. Hello, Chloe said, approaching the bed with cautious steps. I'm Chloe. Hello, Chloe. David's voice was thick with emotion. I'm David. I'm your father. Chloe studied him with the frank curiosity of childhood. You look like me. Mom says I have your eyes. David glanced at Tasha standing by the door, then back to his daughter. You do. The exact same color. Mom says you're sick and need my special blood. That's right. David's smile was gentle. We have the same rare blood type. Not many people have it. I'm going to help you get better, Chloe declared, with the certainty only a child could possess. And then maybe we can get ice cream? Mom says it's good to have ice cream after you give blood. A laugh escaped David, surprising even himself. Ice cream sounds perfect. Tasha watched as they continued to talk, Chloe gradually moving closer to the bed, David drinking in every word, every gesture of the daughter he'd just discovered. The scene was surreal. This meeting that she'd both dreaded and, in her most secret thoughts, sometimes longed for. Dr. Winters entered the room, breaking the spell. I see you've all met, she said, her professional demeanor softened by the scene before her. Chloe, are you ready to help your dad? Chloe nodded, suddenly solemn again. Will it hurt? Just a little pinch, Dr. Winters assured her. And you'll be helping your father very much. I'm not scared, Chloe announced, though she reached for Tasha's hand. You're very brave, David said, his eyes shining with pride and unshed tears. Just like your mother. The procedure was quick and efficient. Chloe sat bravely as the nurse drew her blood, only squeezing Tasha's hand when the needle went in. Afterward, as promised, there was ice cream in the hospital cafeteria, while David received the transfusion that would help save his life. Is he going to be okay now? Chloe asked, chocolate smeared across her upper lip. The doctors think so, Tasha said. Your blood is helping him get stronger. Good. Chloe licked her spoon thoughtfully. Mom, can we visit him again tomorrow? I want to tell him about my science project. The question caught Tasha off guard. She'd been so focused on getting through today that she hadn't thought about tomorrow, about what came next in this new reality where David knew about Chloe. If you'd like to, yes, she said carefully. But remember, he needs rest to get better. I know. I'll be quiet. Chloe's face brightened. Maybe I can draw him a picture to help him feel better. As Chloe chattered about what she might draw, Tasha's mind raced ahead. There would be difficult conversations to come, legal considerations, the inevitable confrontation with Richard Carter. But for now, in this moment, watching her daughter's excitement at the prospect of knowing her father, Tasha allowed herself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, they could find a way forward. If you believe that children often show us the path to healing with their simple wisdom and forgiveness, hit that like button. And if you've ever had to rebuild trust after a painful past, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales for more stories about second chances and the courage it takes to embrace them. The next few days established a routine. Tasha would bring Chloe to the hospital after school, and they would spend an hour or two with David. Chloe would share stories about her day, her friends, her interests, while David listened with rapt attention, soaking in every detail of the life he had missed. On the third day, as Chloe was engrossed in a book the child life specialist had brought, David turned to Tasha with determination in his eyes. I want to be part of her life, he said quietly. Not just visits in a hospital room. I want to be her father, in every sense of the word. Tasha had been expecting this. I know, and I won't keep her from you, David. Not anymore. But we need to be careful. Your father. My father won't be a problem. David's expression hardened. I've already spoken to him. Tasha's eyes widened. You called him? Yesterday. I told him I know what he did. That I know why you left. David's jaw tightened. I told him that if he ever threatens you or Chloe or your family, I'll walk away from Carter Enterprises and take half the board with me. You would do that? Tasha couldn't hide her surprise. For Chloe? For you? In a heartbeat. David's gaze was steady. I've spent 8 years building my own power base in the company, Tasha. I'm not the same young man who let his father dictate his life. Richard knows I mean what I say. What did he say? He denied it at first, then tried to justify it. Said he was protecting me, protecting the company. David shook his head in disgust. When that didn't work, he switched to damage control. Wanted to know how we're going to handle the situation. As if Chloe is some PR problem to be managed. And what did you tell him? That my daughter is not a situation to be handled. That she's the most important person in my life now, along with her mother. David's eyes met hers, filled with an emotion Tasha wasn't ready to name. I told him he has two choices. Accept you both as part of my life, or prepare for retirement sooner than he planned. Tasha sat back, processing his words. The David she had known 8 years ago would never have stood up to his father like that. But then, the Tasha of 8 years ago wouldn't have had the strength to walk away to protect her family, either. They had both changed, grown in ways that pain and separation had forced upon them. I don't want to disrupt Chloe's life, David continued. I know you've built something stable for her, but I want to be there for school events, weekends, holidays. I want to help with homework and teach her to ride a bike and all the things fathers are supposed to do. She already knows how to ride a bike, Tasha said softly. But there are plenty of other things she could use a father for. Hope bloomed in David's eyes. So you're open to this? To us finding a way forward? For Chloe's sake, yes. Tasha hesitated. But David, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. Too many years have passed. I know. He reached for her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she let him take it. I'm not asking for that. Not yet. I'm just asking for a chance to be in both your lives. To show you who I am now, not who I was then. Before Tasha could respond, Chloe bounded back into the room, clutching a drawing she had made. Look, Dad. It's us eating ice cream when you get better. David's face lit up at being called Dad so naturally. He examined the crayon drawing with exaggerated care. This is amazing, Chloe. You're quite the artist. Mom says I get my creativity from you, Chloe said, climbing onto the edge of the bed. She said you used to draw buildings before they were built. That's right. David smiled at Tasha, touched that she had told Chloe positive things about him despite everything. I studied architecture before I joined the family business. I still sketch sometimes, when I need to think. Can you teach me? Chloe asked eagerly. I'd love to. David's voice was thick with emotion. As soon as I'm out of this hospital. 2 weeks later, David was discharged. His recovery would be lengthy, but the critical danger had passed. Chloe's blood had quite literally given him a second chance at life. The first test of their new arrangement came when David asked to take Chloe to the zoo on a Saturday. Tasha agreed, though she spent the entire day checking her phone, half expecting something to go wrong. But when David brought Chloe home, she was bubbling with excitement, clutching a stuffed elephant and wearing a hat shaped like a giraffe's head. Mom, Dad knows everything about animals, Chloe exclaimed. And he let me have ice cream before lunch. Did he now? Tasha raised an eyebrow at David, who had the grace to look sheepish. Special circumstances, he defended with a smile. First official dad-daughter outing. After Chloe went to show her new treasures to her dolls, David lingered at the door of Tasha's modest apartment. Thank you for today, he said, for trusting me with her. She had a wonderful time. Tasha leaned against the doorframe. Though we might need to establish some ground rules about ice cream before lunch. Noted. David's expression grew serious. Tasha, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you. My father is hosting a retirement party next month. Retirement? Tasha couldn't hide her surprise. He actually agreed to step down? On his terms, but yes. He's naming me CEO. David took a deep breath. I'd like you and Chloe to be there. Tasha stiffened. David, I don't think. Please hear me out. I know it's asking a lot, but this is important to me. His eyes held hers. I want everyone to know that I'm not ashamed of my daughter or her mother, that you're both part of my life now. I don't want to hide or pretend anymore. It would be a circus, Tasha protested. The press would have a field day. CEO's secret love child revealed. Is that really what you want Chloe exposed to? We can control the narrative, David argued. Release a statement beforehand, set boundaries with the press. But Tasha, I'm done living my life according to appearances and expectations. That's what cost me 8 years with my daughter. I won't make that mistake again. Tasha studied him, seeing the determination in his eyes. This was another way David had changed. He was no longer willing to compromise on what truly mattered to him. I'll think about it, she said finally. But my priority is protecting Chloe. As it should be. David hesitated, then added softly, and what about you, Tasha? Who's protecting you? The question lingered between them, loaded with meaning. For 8 years, Tasha had been the protector, the provider, the one who carried all burdens alone. The idea of sharing that weight, of having someone stand beside her rather than against her, was both tempting and terrifying. One step at a time, she said, not quite answering his question. Let's see how the next few weeks go. The weeks turned into months. David became a fixture in their lives. Sunday dinners, school events, impromptu visits bearing books or art supplies for Chloe. He was careful not to overstep, always checking with Tasha before making plans, always respectful of the boundaries she set. And somewhere along the way, those boundaries began to soften. Tasha found herself looking forward to his visits, enjoying their conversations after Chloe went to bed, rediscovering the connection that had drawn them together in the first place. 6 months after that fateful day at the hospital, David invited them both to dinner at his penthouse. Chloe was ecstatic, racing around the apartment, examining everything with wide-eyed wonder. "Dad, your place is like a castle," she declared, pressing her face against the floor-to-ceiling windows to take in the city view. "It's just an apartment," David laughed. "Though I admit it's probably too big for one person." After dinner, when Chloe was engrossed in a movie in David's home theater room, he led Tasha out onto the balcony where they had shared their first kiss all those years ago. "Do you remember?" he asked softly, standing beside her as they looked out at the city lights. "Of course I do." Tasha's voice was equally quiet. "It feels like a lifetime ago." In many ways it was. David turned to face her. "We're different people now. We've both grown, changed, learned hard lessons." "Yes, we have." Tasha met his gaze. "Some lessons I wish we hadn't needed to learn." "I've been thinking about that a lot lately." David took a step closer. "About regrets and second chances. About what might have been and what still could be." Tasha's heart quickened. "David, I'm not asking for everything all at once," he said quickly. "I know we're still finding our way, but I want you to know that my feelings haven't changed, Tasha. If anything, they've deepened. Seeing you with Chloe, witnessing your strength, your grace, your unwavering love for our daughter, it's only made me love you more." Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. "I never stopped loving you either," she admitted. "Even when I was angry, even when I thought I'd never see you again. You were always there, in my heart." David reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't hesitate to take it. "So where does that leave us?" "I don't know," Tasha said honestly. "But I think I'm ready to find out." As David drew her closer, as their lips met in a kiss that felt both familiar and new, Tasha knew they were beginning a different journey than the one they'd started 9 years ago. This time, they were older, wiser, with a precious daughter binding them together in ways they never could have imagined. 1 year later, Tasha stood in the garden of David's, now their home, watching as Chloe raced across the lawn with her friends from her new school. The transition hadn't been easy. Moving from their modest apartment to David's world had required adjustments for both Tasha and Chloe, but they had taken it slowly, carefully, always putting Chloe's needs first. "Penny, for your thoughts?" David's arms encircled her waist as he joined her on the terrace. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Tasha said, leaning back against him. "A year ago, I was grading papers in our tiny apartment, and now you're still grading papers, just in a bigger office," David teased, referring to the space he created for her in their home, where she continued her work as a teacher despite his offers to support them both. "Some things shouldn't change," Tasha replied with a smile. "I love teaching, and it's important for Chloe to see that her mother has her own identity, her own purpose." One of the many reasons I love you. David pressed a kiss to her temple. Speaking of Chloe, she asked me this morning when we're going to make it official. Tasha turned in his arms. Did she now? Her exact words were, Dad, when are you going to marry Mom so we can all have the same last name? David's eyes danced with amusement. Apparently, having different last names is very confusing for her teacher. Is that the only reason you should marry me? For Chloe's teacher's convenience, Tasha teased. Well, that and the fact that I've been in love with you for nearly a decade. David's expression grew serious. I know we agreed to take things slowly, Tasha, and I've respected that. But I think Chloe might be onto something. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment. But maybe there is no perfect moment. Maybe it's about creating perfect moments out of ordinary days. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Not the ostentatious diamond one might expect from a millionaire CEO, but a delicate vintage piece with a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. It reminded me of your eyes, David said softly, and of Chloe's. The two pairs of eyes I most love waking up to every morning. Tasha felt her breath catch. David, I'm not asking because of Chloe, though she's part of it. I'm asking because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because these past months have shown me that what we have now is stronger, deeper, more real than what we had before. He took her hand. Tasha Simmons, will you marry me? Not because of our past, but because of our future. Tears blurred Tasha's vision as she nodded. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. As David slipped the ring onto her finger, as he pulled her into a kiss that promised forever, Tasha heard a squeal of delight. They turned to find Chloe watching them from the edge of the terrace, her eyes wide with excitement. Did you say yes, Mom? Are we going to be a real family now? Tasha opened her arms, and Chloe ran into them. We already are a real family, sweetheart. This just makes it official. David enfolded them both in his embrace. This little family that had found its way to each other against all odds. The most real family I could ever imagine, he murmured. Later that night, after Chloe was asleep, Tasha and David sat in the quiet of their living room, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. I never thought we'd get here, Tasha admitted. That day at the hospital, I was so afraid of what would happen when you learned about Chloe. And I never imagined that nearly dying would be the best thing that ever happened to me, David replied. That my daughter's blood would save not just my life, but my soul. It's strange how things work out, Tasha mused. If your father hadn't threatened my family, if I hadn't left, we might have had a conventional life together. But would we have appreciated it the way we do now, after everything we've been through? I don't know, David said honestly. But I do know that I wouldn't trade Chloe for anything, not even those 8 lost years. And I wouldn't trade the woman you've become. Strong, independent, fiercely protective. For the young woman I first fell in love with, as wonderful as she was. Tasha leaned her head against his shoulder. And what about your father? Do you think he'll ever truly accept us? Richard Carter had maintained a careful distance since David's confrontation, attending obligatory family events with stiff politeness, but never truly warming to either Tasha or Chloe. I don't know, David sighed. He's set in his ways, but he's missing out on knowing his amazing granddaughter. And that's his loss, not ours. She asked about him the other day, Tasha revealed. Wanted to know why Grandpa Richard never stays for dinner like my parents do when they visit. What did you tell her? The truth or a version of it? That sometimes grown-ups have trouble changing their minds about things, even when they should. That Grandpa Richard loves her in his own way, but doesn't always know how to show it. David nodded, appreciating Tasha's wisdom in handling the situation. You're an incredible mother, you know that? The way you protect her while still being honest with her. It's remarkable. I learned from my mistakes, Tasha said quietly. Keeping you from knowing about her was wrong. Even if my intentions were good. I don't want to repeat that pattern of secrecy, even with your father. Maybe that's the lesson in all of this, David reflected. That secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, eventually come to light. And that sometimes what seems like an ending is really just the beginning of something better than we could have imagined. As they sat together, planning their future, Tasha thought about the long, winding path that had led them here. The pain, the separation, the years of raising Chloe alone. All of it had shaped them, strengthened them, prepared them for this second chance. And in the end, wasn't that what love was about? Not the perfect fairy tale, but the messy, complicated reality of two imperfect people choosing each other, day after day, despite knowing each other's flaws and failures. The courage to be vulnerable again after being hurt. The wisdom to forgive not just others, but ourselves, for past mistakes. If you believe that true love isn't about perfect people finding each other, but imperfect people learning to see each other perfectly, hit that like button. And if this story of forgiveness and second chances touched your heart, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales for more stories that remind us of the healing power of love. Because sometimes, the most beautiful love stories aren't the ones that unfold without obstacles, but the ones that overcome them. Sometimes, the strongest bonds are forged in the fire of adversity. And sometimes, the most precious gifts come to us in the most unexpected ways. Even through the blood of a child who connects two hearts that were always meant to beat as one. I'm Mr. Harrison, and I'll see you in the next Timeless Love Tale.